Number 10. Wolverine's patch disguise. Wolverine's patch disguise. Okay, bub. So you know I'm a big Wolverine fan, and if you follow me elsewhere on the interwebs, you may also know I'm a big patch fan. However, even I, a major fan, can acknowledge how ridiculous this look and disguise is. While the Gambit miniseries we got recently did help to justify Gambit's kind of weird costume choices, the patch miniseries definitely did not do that. Although that miniseries, written by Wolverine writing legend Larry Hama, which takes us back in time for an untold tale from the patch era, is still amazing, and you should definitely check it out. The funny thing is how even in the comics, the other characters who interact with Patch and Madripoor eventually fess up to the fact that they pretty much always knew Patch was Wolverine, admitting that his attempt at a disguise is as ridiculous and dumb as we all thought it was. Still, I do love the Patch look, so this is more me pointing out how silly it is, as opposed to dumb in like a bad way. This is actually a lovably dumb superhero suit, I would say. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button. Number 9. Superman Red and Blue. Admittedly, these designs are actually kind of really cool, but it's more the power sets that come with them and how they attempted to, in essence, reset Superman with these looks that makes them kind of dumb. Although I do admire DC for wanting to change up the design and the character, which honestly was a revolutionary choice. The fact remains that this is comics, and returning to a status quo, especially for a character as old and as respected as Supes, is kinda necessary, which is why this didn't really work and a lot of people didn't really like it. Number 8. Ghost's suit. Ghost in the MCU is pretty insane when it comes to her suit. While no longer really a villain by the end of the Ant-Man and the Wasp film from 2018, she did start out as one. Her suit allows her to become intangible, making her a lot harder to fight. Basically, it helps her to like control her abilities and stabilize them. Intangibility to me and phasing have always been considered as some of the strongest powers out there. And last time I checked, this was not an ability that Tony's suit had. So I have to consider Ghost stronger for that reason. I would be curious to see what a matchup between MCU's Ghost and even MCU's Iron Man would look like. Although for this list, we're obviously comparing the comic book version and the specific armor model that I mentioned earlier, so keep that in mind if you think that MCU Iron Man would take MCU Ghost, which I'm not even sure if that's how that would go down myself, but yeah. Number 7. Lex Luthor's war suit. Oftentimes when Lex Luthor dons a war suit, it's because he means business. Usually this goes down when Lex is ready to tussle with Superman, and while I think Iron Man is pretty powerful, I wouldn't say he is anywhere near Superman levels of strength. This is because he is mainly just, you know, a guy in a suit. Take him out of the suit and well, he becomes just another squishy super genius. Lex Luthor's war suit is not only built to take on the powerhouse that is Superman, but with a few modifications from Lex, I think it could easily be used to destroy Iron Man and his suit. Lex is also a master when it comes to exploiting the weaknesses of his nemesis, which I think in Tony's case might be the arc reactor that keeps him alive, which to many is pretty apparent. I mean, it's like right there. So I would say if he swapped out some of the kryptonite abilities and weapons the war suit has for stuff that focuses instead on Tony's weakness, I would be pretty worried to see Iron Man take on Lex, and I think Lex might take that one. Number 6. Dr. Doom's Iron Man Model Prime armor. The Model Prime Iron Man suit is one of the suits that Tony was using during Civil War II. However, Tony swapped out this suit for a different one that was designed specifically to be used in his fight against Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel. After Stark was knocked into a coma as a result of Civil War II, Victor Von Doom for a while played the role of hero, being one of those to step into Stark's shoes, metal shoes, for a time as the infamous Iron Man. The suit he donned was the Model Prime armor, but of course with a few adjustments made to this armor. For one, he added a bunch more repulsor beams, going from like just one to having multiple that could all fire at once, which is pretty scary stuff. Victor also enhanced the armor using dark art spells as well to improve upon it. So technically this is, yes, an Iron Man suit that was technically initially made by Stark, but it isn't the model that we're using as the base, and in this instance, for this period, it was actually in Doom's possession, so although Tony made it, it was Doom's suit. Also, yes, Doom was acting as a hero at the time, but I mean, the name says it all, infamous Iron Man, and I would still say we more consider him a villain than a hero just in general, at this point in time anyways. Although I've definitely been noticing a slow shift over the years from villain to reformed hero with Doom, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Number 5. Kang's armor. Something we don't often think about is the fact that basically Kang is his suit. I mean, Kang is also a super genius from the future, but when it comes to his powers, that's pretty much all his suit and his tech. And as Adam said on his superhero version of this list, there is something major that Tony Stark's armor can't do that some other characters' suits can, and that is time travel. In Kang's case, his armor allows him to do this, along with giving him super strength, super durability, the ability to fire concussive blasts, and for a while the ability to upload his consciousness into a new body if he died, so basically making him immortal. Number 4. Carnage with the Grendel symbiote. I mean, Cletus Cassidy with the Carnage symbiote is pretty ridiculous already, and while I'm sure Iron Man would find a way to subdue Carnage, I feel like Carnage revived as the Grendel symbiote would be pretty unstoppable, even for Tony Stark in one of his most modern standard suits. I mean, when we think about absolute carnage and everything that happened there, it was a pretty crazy event, and I just feel like if you try to throw Tony in there, he's not going to be the person to be able to beat Grendel symbiote Carnage. Number 3. Apocalypse's celestial armor. While it isn't as often talked about, Apocalypse also has his own suit, built by some of the most brilliant and most powerful people in the entire universe, perhaps even the multiverse, the Celestials. I think it's important to remember when we talk about Apocalypse how closely integrated he is with the Celestials. Not only does he have access to one of their ships and access to their tech, which he can use to modify mutants or other beings, evolving them and manipulating their bodies and abilities as he pleases, but he also has access to their tech, their weapons, and even the armor made for those who served them. It is believed that this armor actually helps to enhance the naturally evolved powers and abilities of the wearer, and it has also been shown to be fairly indestructible, as was evident when Apocalypse fought against Thor way back in the past. That's a thing that happened. I feel like Thor has fought everyone in the past. Number 2. Maestro in the Destroyer armor. Woo! Maestro in the Destroyer armor is just insane. This is the armor that Maestro donned when he happened to completely decimate God Emperor Doom, which in and of itself is already wildly powerful, never mind if it were to be combined with Hulk's tyrannical alternate version, Maestro. That being said, this turns out to be simply an illusion that Maestro experiences in Future Imperfect. But still, if it happens in a dream, a fantasy, or even in an illusion, in Marvel Comics, it's treated as though this possibility does exist somewhere in the multiverse, so even this instance has its own like designated universe, contained in its own separate but very real world. So I think we can still count it based on that. And also it just like looks super cool, so like obviously I gotta talk about it. Number 1. Bruce Banner's Spaceship Hulk. Bruce Banner has one of my favorite suits on this list because his suit is literally the Hulk. While many consider Bruce Banner like the Hulk to be a hero, I would say he's definitely been acting a little less heroic as of late, and that kind of a little bit more selfish, but I'm also kind of here for it. I mean, he did turn the Hulk into his spaceship, which is honestly pretty dastardly. Near the beginning of the current Hulk series by Donny Cates and Ryan Ottley, Tony at one point attempts to apprehend Bruce, who is fully in control of the cybernetically modified Hulk, and guess what? It doesn't go well, which just goes to show you how insanely powerful this suit version being controlled by Banner is. Hulk is beset by multiple Hulk busters, and with Hulk's rage only turned up to the level of 1 out of 10 on Banner's rage engine room throttle, I think it's safe to say that Banner in his Hulk suit could easily decimate Tony entirely if he wanted to. In fact, that's kind of what's implied in that issue. Like, he's like, look, I'm just gonna leave, but like literally he probably just could have killed Tony there if he wanted to. Number 10. Sasha Hammer's Detroit Steel armor. Time to set down some parameters here before we jump into the legacy that is Sasha Hammer's. So when I'm talking about Iron Man and his suit, we're actually talking about his base suit. Specifically, I'm going to be thinking in my mind of Iron Man Armor Model 70, which first appeared in the 2020 Iron Man series and was created by Christopher Cantwell and Alex Ross. Despite being one of the newest models, this armor was created to be a somewhat sleeker and somewhat shinier version of Tony's base armor in terms of its design. Also, look at them metal thighs. I love the thighs in this suit. His thighs are like metal gold. Man, I wish everyone had gold thighs. I just feel like that's such a cool thing. If I could wear metal pants, I would. This suit was used during Null's invasion of Earth and has a pretty sweet repulsor setting known as the can opener. Hammer, which allows Tony to basically destroy other Iron Man suits. However, it should be noted that this setting can't be used very often as it requires a lot of power and therefore has a limited charge. So although for some of you might be like, but couldn't you use that to destroy all suits? Well, not exactly, and also like not even all the time, so yeah, but it is a cool feature. Sasha Hammer is the granddaughter of industrialist and businessman Justin Hammer, being the daughter of Justine Hammer and the Mandarin. Talk about a legacy villain. Her and her mom Justine became natural enemies of Tony Stark's Iron Man. At one point they created their own tech security company, Detroit Steel. It was during this time that they attempted to discredit Iron Man and eventually attack him outright. While Iron Man would ultimately defeat Sasha and Detroit Steel in this instance, he would need quite a bit of backup to do so. And this wouldn't be the last that we'd hear of her, with her later becoming the pilot of the Detroit Steel armor and returning on the scene. Honestly, I kind of love Sasha and I wish they had done more with her in the comics. Like, come on, bring her back, Marvel. Who's writing Iron Man right now? Jerry Dugan? Jerry Dugan, come on! Bring back Sasha Hammer, she's so cool. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you love when we talk about awesome suits that people wear, you can check out our Suits playlist. That's a new playlist that we just made for this, so check it out. Number 9. Doctor Doom's Mystical Armor. While Doctor Doom's mystical armor hasn't been super established in terms of its properties, power levels, and abilities, it is clear that this armor is pretty OP. I mean, already it comes with Doom wearing it, and fighting Doom is pretty wild. But even aside from that, Doom also is believed to get a pretty mighty power boost to his magic abilities while wearing it, giving him enough mystical power to defeat even the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange. Also, I feel like in one of those instances where you have tech versus magic, like, I'm always gonna put my money on magic, you know what I mean? Number 8. Swordsman. I don't know about you, but I personally find Jacques Duquesne's look a little silly. Like, what is happening with that helmet? Is that a helmet? It's not, right? Because it's like attached to his whole outfit, which is also really weird. What's happening there? Also, I don't mind the tunic and the tights, but the weird pink and purple color combination here is interesting for color choices. At least that's how I see the colors. I don't know if you guys see pink and purple, but that's what I'm seeing here. And the fact that while he has gloves on to protect his hands, he has nothing to cover his arms, except for, I guess, those armbands. What are the armbands for? Are they supposed to protect him, or are they like just for adornment? The thing I love about the modern look for the Kotati version of this character by comparison to the original human swordsman who first appeared in Marvel Comics back in the 60s is that at least this plant version, while still not having full sleeves, had the improved design of wearing bracers. Honestly, I think that makes more sense for a master swordsman rather than gloves and armbands. And also, just for context, I was talking about the original swordsman design there, so. Number 7. Azrael's Batman. As per Saya Dubray's suggestion from the comments on part 1 of this list, I had to include Jean-Paul Valley's Batman outfit here. You're completely right, Saya. It is one of the most 90s outfits around. And while I am a big fan of dumb 90s outfits, that doesn't make them any less dumb. It just means that I love things that are dumb, which is I think fine. And this outfit is definitely included in the list of dumb 90s outfits for sure. From the weird cape collar to the metal accents and back again to the insane amount of muscle definition that we can see through what must be the tightest fitting outfit ever. Also, metal garters. I mean, having a metal garter on your leg, I imagine that has to be uncomfortable. Number 6. Wolverine's no nose. Wolverine's nose is not really a suit at all, but it is a whole look that Wolverine had for a time that was bizarre, and I thought, hey, if Tony's iron nose can make the cut on AJ's part 1, it's important that I also include Wolverine's nose on part 2 here. While Iron Man having a nose added to his suit was weird for the character, Wolverine had the opposite problem of completely losing his nose, which was also weird for the character. However, at least this was more of a stylistic choice inspired by the story than, you know, an arbitrary change to the design based on where Iron Man's eyes are. So I will at least say that in the defense of this pretty strange look for the character. It came as a result of Wolverine having the adamantium coating ripped from his bones by Magneto, which also turned him feral. For a few years he'd become more bestial in nature than he normally was, which apparently also meant his nose, I guess, had to go, becoming more of a flat central spot on his face with 2 nostrils. Kinda like became pushed into his face. Almost. I mean, honestly, this version of Wolverine almost becomes unrecognizable when you take the nose off. Number 5. Smallville's Aquaman. Whether we're talking sleeves or no sleeves, second generation or first generation, the Aquaman look for Smallville was pretty ridiculous and honestly kinda dumb in a bad way. While I typically try to approach dumb lists with less of that kind of outlook because, you know, dumb doesn't always have to mean bad and it definitely doesn't usually mean bad for me, this costume in my opinion is actually pretty atrocious. I honestly, I don't really like this one. Honestly, I think I'd rather have the Golden Age look with the weird fins on his arms and his legs over this one. It just looks like a weird jogging outfit to me, and I know it's probably supposed to be like a wetsuit, but no, just let's pretend it didn't happen. Except we can't because it's on this list, so now we all have to remember it. Number 4. The Crossing Thor. I mean, everyone in the Crossing looked pretty wild, but Thor is definitely up there for me personally. The Crossing is the event where we learned that this whole time Iron Man had been basically a sleeper agent for Immortus, aka an alternate timeline version of Kang the Conqueror. The whole time! Dun dun dun! In honor of this very important and historical time, Thor and many of the other Avengers ended up with kind of new looks. Now, Thor's costume was definitely the most 90s look I think I've ever seen. The only thing it's missing really for me is pouches, honestly. What it lacks in pouches though, it makes up for with everything else in abundance. Tons of chains and elaborate excessive harnesses and one of those weird like face masks that covers part of your face like the sides and the top but leaves a hole on the top of it for your hair to come out. And of course, I believe this was actually supposed to be what future Thor was meant to look like in this comic in like another timeline, despite this look truly screaming 90s. In the story, this appeared to be a vision that we got of what a future Thor would look like. Now, thank goodness that hasn't ended up happening in this current timeline, at least not yet anyways. I don't know, that might still be somewhere lurking. Number 3. Star Sapphire. When it comes to Star Sapphire, Carol Ferris, she isn't always a hero and she isn't always a villain either. She's kind of done both of those things. She served both roles, but either way, she usually does so pretty ridiculously dressed, I gotta be honest. I mean, not always. She's had some reasonable costume designs and some that I've liked, but for this point, I'm focusing on her one-piece bathing suit-like costume with the middle of it cut out to the point that it becomes theoretically, structurally unsound, I'd say. For the record, I don't mind a woman who shows off her body. In fact, you know, I too enjoy that, both as a woman and both as someone looking at women, especially when it comes from a place of empowerment. I don't really mind anyone showing off their body as long as they're the ones making that choice for themselves, and it makes sense. Truly, doing so can not only be a good showcase of confidence, but also of self-love and self-celebration, and that's hot to me. But this costume is just objectively ridiculous because how does it stay on? I mean, I know that it's, you know, probably like a construct, likely created by Carol, so we can explain it away with what is basically like kind of cosmic magic. But imagine cosplaying this look. Imagine it. Just imagine you wearing this costume and how does that work? Without added invisible straps or literal glue or tape, it becomes impossible. And for that reason, I have to call it dumb because logically, in our world at least, where sadly there are no green or violet lanterns, it simply doesn't work as it appears. Also, I have only ever seen people successfully cosplay this look with invisible straps. Glue would likely damage your outfit, and honestly, it's really hard on your skin, I know, because I've worn it under costumes before, and tape would probably sweat off unless it was really cold out. And I know because I'm not a super sweaty person, and I've also worn tape before and experienced that, which you know, if you have to wear it in the cold too, you'd be really cold in this look. So really the only option is invisible straps, which clearly Carol doesn't need somehow in the comics as she's never drawn with them. Unless maybe she is, but they're invisible so we don't see them. Even invisible straps, you usually see them, so it just makes no sense. Number 2, the Crossing Wasp. I don't just want to talk about the Crossing here, folks, but as ridiculous as Thor's look is, Wasp is possibly even more wild. Now, she kind of had two looks as well. The one she wore at the beginning, which is kind of like a metallic bodysuit that somehow like fits her like spandex and possibly even has a metal pocket on the legs. I'm not sure. I saw that in one of the panels I was looking at and I was like, wait a minute. Does she have like metal cargo pants that are skin tight? It looks like a pocket to me. The second is after she's resurrected in Avengers issue 394 and comes back literally looking like a pink bug woman with bright pink hair and bright pink wings. Number 1. Original Peacemaker. I have to say, I really love how dumb this look is, and I love that we managed to somehow keep it in the DCU, almost one for one. The reason why I went with the original version of Peacemaker's costume from his days at Charlton Comics isn't just because of the white pants, which to me are an absurd fashion choice to make when you know you're headed into a fray. Wearing white pants in general for me is like a huge thing. I'm a messy person in my day-to-day, so I can't imagine getting into a fight with white pants on. But the other thing that I really think is strange about this that really gets me is the weird giant helmet. It looks like there's like a thick doorway sitting on top of Peacemaker's head.
At number 10, we have the Rainbow Batman suit from Detective Comics number 241. This is the suit where we get to see Bruce Wayne's fashionista persona as he gets to fight crime in all sorts of different colored suits, from green to purple to yellow to white to red, which on the cover looks more like a neon pink to me. And of course, rainbow. Now, you might wonder why the Dark Knight would want to wear all these costumes, but as always when it comes to Batman, the explanation is purely logical and slightly convoluted. See, the Bat Diva did this in order to draw attention towards himself and away from Robin, who earlier had performed a heroic act as Dick Grayson, pushing a girl out of the way of a speeding car and injuring his arm in the process. And since Batman don't believe in work from home culture, and to his credit it is the 50s, he takes the money he would have spent on Robin's paid leave and cops himself some new fancy outfits so that no one would pay attention to Robin's arm and realize his secret identity. If you're enjoying the video so far, do me a quick solid and support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Goes a long way, thanks guys. At number 9, we have Raven's New 52 redesign from Teen Titans number 17. Raven's original cloak is simple, elegant, and iconic, and so to recapitulate that essence for the New 52, they took all that and put it in the garbage and just went, Raven? Needs feathers. Listen, I know she's supposed to be gloomy and mysterious and whatnot, but covering her face completely is stupid, and what they covered it with looks ridiculous. Not to mention the whole bird theme as a whole is severely uninspired. And also the knee pads. Why does she need freaking knee pads? Heck, if you're gonna take it that far, you might as well throw in some elbow pads, shin guards, and a jock strap for good measure. Morons.
Number 8. Martian Manhunter. This was really the only suggestion I got from the comments on our part 2. People were saying that we never talk about male characters in skimpy outfits and how those are dumb, and Martian Manhunter was one of the ones that was suggested. And I do agree that Martian Manhunter does have a weird outfit, but I also didn't know too much about his outfit and what it means. So I decided to look into it. And as I was expecting, while this outfit does look pretty ridiculous with Martian Manhunter's little shorts and his X-straps over his bare chest with his long flowy cape, it turns out there is actually a reason behind it. So it kinda does make sense. Martian Manhunter being a shapeshifter, it's as I expected, and apparently his clothes are actually just him because he's a shapeshifter. It's just a weird thing to think about. His suit therefore is something he chose to shapeshift into, and it seems to be inspired by the heroes around him. Martian Manhunter in his normal form actually looks more alien even than we know him to look, and is a little bit more spiky. And so his appearance on Earth is actually him trying to stay true to his Martian heritage while still shifting his appearance somewhat to look more humanoid, so he'll be more accepted, and he makes himself look like he's wearing clothes that he feels makes him look heroic, as that's what he wants to be. He wants to be a hero. So if you think Martian Manhunter dresses weird, it's really kind of a reflection of how Martian Manhunter sees most male superhero costumes and just superhero costumes in general, and maybe the way that we see them. In fact, I definitely see inspiration in his look from another alien superhero, Superman. You know, with his green skin and his little booty shorts, which sometimes are like little briefs. It's kind of got a Superman vibe to it a little bit. Number 7. Susan Storm's cutout suit. Oh boy. This is a 90s classic in some of the worst ways, I think I can safely say. Now, I love a woman in a sexy costume, but this one is a lot, even for me. And what's worse, they made it narratively so that Sue designed this one herself, which feels not right for the character, but hey. If that feels pretty out of character for Sue, who refers to feeling like an old frump in her previous suit, you're not alone in thinking that, by the way. Many people like to defend this costume by actually saying that narratively its creation makes sense because it came from her evil persona Malice, actually, who was still possessing and influencing Sue at the time, and that this is actually an indicator of that. Well, this might be true, I'm still skeptical as to this being the real reason outside of the canon for this redesign. And even if that is the only reason she had this suit, I still don't really like it because as a Sue Storm fan, it doesn't actually come from Sue herself, but from Malice, who was controlling her at the time. Which I know Malice is kind of like a part of her, but it's like the evil part of her. So there's really not as much agency here for Sue. Number 6, Vision. Marvel Comics initially had a completely different character who is known as the hero Vision. This was actually back, I believe, when they were Timely, before they were known as Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics would ultimately, of course, ditch their original version of the character and later get a completely new version, an android instead of an alien, who would end up as the Vision we know and love today. Not only is this original Vision's costume a product of the times, that insanely thick gold belt that he's wearing, but if you consider Martian Manhunter's costume to be ridiculous, Vision likely inspired that look, having a similar origin and a similar appearance initially, and appearing 15 years earlier in the comics in 1940, whereas Martian Manhunter, I believe, first appeared in 1955, so yeah. Number 5, Mangaverse Black Cat. Mangaverse Black Cat has a pretty wild look. To be fair to the universe, this one fits, I would say, in regards to, you know, a manga look, but boy oh boy is it strange when you think of Black Cat's standard look over on Earth 616. I mean, Black Cat has always been a sexy character, as many are in comics, but she doesn't usually have quite a deep V-neck. I'm not sure how exactly this suit also really functions. It must be made of some very firm material or like glued into place for it to stay on. Also missing are the tufts of white fur we're used to seeing Felicia wear, which I actually do miss. I really like those. I still feel like those could have been incorporated in some way in this look, but I guess they wanted to move away from having this version of the character look too similar to her, you know, 616 counterpart, which honestly, fair enough, but still the deep V and the super long claws for me feel pretty weird. Maybe it's just because I'm not as into manga as I used to be, I don't know, but that's where we're at. Number 4, Doctor Strange, a new Sorcerer Supreme. The 90s was a time when many folks got new looks. Some of them were, no, actually almost all of them were pretty terrible. But that's why we love them, right? Steven was not exempt from this. He got one of the most mystical 90s looks after years of having what I would say was a relatively unchanged costume. It didn't change that much, and even today it's kind of got a similar vibe. His costume was tweaked here and there, but usually for the most part it's just been slightly updated. But this was a pretty crazy refresh for him. His hair was even different. This transformation took place in issue number 75 of Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, where Steven revealed himself at the end as the true Doctor Strange. The sunglasses are what really get me with this one, though honestly, kinda wanna cosplay as 90s Strange now. I mean, what a vibe. Also, I love that he comes out and he's like, the sun, I must put on sunglasses. To make sense of why he's wearing sunglasses. Which, I mean, you know, you gotta make sense of that, otherwise how am I supposed to accept as a reader? Number 3, Starfire from Red Hood and the Outlaws. Based on how the comments looked for part 2, I can already feel the animosity surrounding this point just building up. Just for me even mentioning it. I could end the point here and I feel like people would rage. But regardless, I'm gonna dive into my perspective of this one anyways, because, well, I mean, that's what I'm here to do, so that's what we're gonna do. Talking about costumes that I think are somewhat dumb, and so we're gonna get into that. As I've said before though, and I will say again, dumb to me doesn't always mean bad. It can mean illogical, silly, or contradictory. It doesn't necessarily mean bad. I love a lot of bad costumes myself, so they're not bad, they're just, I don't know, on paper good. Does that make sense? Well, I don't actually mind the design. I do think this look for Starfire was a bit much. I do think Starfire makes sense wearing less based on her energy absorption abilities. However, that being said, her first costume was basically just like a one-piece swimsuit with some cutouts. This is like not even a bikini level of coverage. It's like a bikini bottoms with cutouts with like a collar shoulder thing and pasties. And I mean, it's definitely an homage to that original look, but they undressed it even more for like really no reason. Add in the fact that Starfire was also an amnesiac at the beginning of this run, and I feel like we could have done better by Corey here. It would actually be less ridiculous to me if Corey was the one to have chosen this with all her memories attached. Then it would actually have some agency. This was kind of just a weird time in general for her character. Also, because it bears repeating, apparently, I am not critiquing the outfit because it is sexy. It's more the issue of how extreme it is and what was going on for Starfire in the story when she wore this look. I like sexy costumes. I like characters who wear sexy costumes. That's all fine with me. Number 2, Superman's t-shirt and jeans look. I mean, what even is this look? I understand wanting to modernize your character's appearance and give them something totally different, but a t-shirt and jeans just seems a little too low-key. And I know it had a narrative explanation, but still, it's pretty ridiculous. This is the outfit Superman wore when he drove around the US on a motorbike. He couldn't fly at the time, and what a time it was. I will say though, this one would be really easy to cosplay at least, so it gets some points for that, because I mean, anyone could do this look. I could do this look. I could be this Superman. Number 1, Red Sonja's chainmail bikini. Now of course, I have cosplayed as Red Sonja, but even I can admit that her outfit is pretty ridiculous. And I say this with much love for this outfit. The whole point of wearing chainmail is to protect you, so wearing it in a bikini form, it doesn't really make any sense. The only thing I can say about this that kind of makes sense is Red Sonja really doesn't care what other people think of her, so I could see her wearing a chainmail bikini because you just didn't care, but it's not good armor, you know what I mean? And sure, it's an iconic look that I will happily wear any day of the week, well as long as I'm feeling like wearing a chainmail bikini, but that doesn't change how goofy it is, as is evident by many of those who write and draw her, changing up what she wears inside the comics while kind of saving that iconic look more for either a single moment in a story or just for the cover. So I feel like even creative teams acknowledge this. Number 10, Spider-Man's 2021 hoodie suit. Spider-Man's 2021 hoodie costume is definitely an odd one. Now I'm not gonna lie, this one didn't bother me myself too much. There are parts of it I actually kind of like. I actually really like his shoes, but I do know people who pretty passionately felt that this look is ridiculous. And I'm including it because I value the specific person's opinion who actually even mentioned that to me, and I think they made a fair point for why it was so silly, so I'm going to indulge. The Spider-Man we are talking about here is of course Miles Morales, and the look we're talking about is the one he donned before this current look that he's in right now, which is kind of a return to more of his classic look. I like to call this specific look though his hoodie costume, although to be fair that's a little confusing because he has another hoodie costume, but anyways, hoodie 2021. It basically looks like he's wearing a hoodie with leggings and of course sweet kicks. Of course I will say this costume looks super comfy, which for me makes more sense than some of the other things that superheroes are known for wearing, but it also greatly deviates from his normally sleek design, which is I think what was missing for most who weren't fans of this look. While it is a bit goofy looking, especially with the leggings, which I gotta say I kind of agree, kinda wish he had looser pants to kind of match his hoodie, this costume was actually made by one of Miles' friends as a replacement, so at least it also had a reason for existing in the story. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us and you love talking about all the dumb, weird costumes by giving this video a thumbs up. I love dumb costumes. Number 9, Wonder Woman's secretary look. Forget the old. The new Wonder Woman is here, and she is depowered and working as a spy and business owner, baby. The kind of Wonder Woman you probably never really asked to see, but the 70s gave it to us anyways. Admittedly, the actual fashion sense of this look is pretty great, I gotta say. So although in some ways this is kinda dumb, I also feel like the actual fashion, amazing. And I mean all around throughout as well. But the fact that it comes with Diana not having her powers anymore is pretty tragic, which is why it's going to make our cut. Even though this was done in an effort to actually promote feminism at the time. The revamp was actually intended by the creative team behind it to encourage other women to strive for independence, and was actually pretty well executed, I gotta say. Even though taking away Diana's powers would in retrospect be seen as a downgrade for the character in regards to her history. Which is why this makes our cut, even though I understand what they were trying to do was not that, but it unfortunately ended up being seen as a setback as opposed to a move forward for the character.
At number 8 we have Cyborg Spider-Man from Spider-Man number 21. This is probably the most 90s Spider-Man costume out there, though I wouldn't be surprised if one of you guys in the comments proved me wrong. Solo nearly ended Spider-Man, believing him to be Doc Ock thanks to an illusion cast onto him by Mysterio. But Peter was rescued in the nick of time by Cyborg X, who took him to Care Labs to get fixed up, where he would awake with a new metal cast, an eyepiece, and some stitches. He was even gifted a utility belt, though Spidey never puts this one to use. And while the original version of the Cyborg suit is disbanded fairly quickly, probably on account of it being so hard to look at, it's worth mentioning that a Pete from a different timeline decided to go all in with the cybernetic enhancements, leading to a truly cyborg Spider-Man whose costume is seriously done right. We're even gonna get a fresh take of the character on screen in the the next Spider-Verse movie with Cyborg Spider-Woman, and I'm all about it. Well, save for the spiky shoulder guard. Personally, I feel it's a little bit out of place, but maybe we'll get a good enough explanation for it in the movie, but probably not. At number 7, we have the Superman Unchained armor from Superman Unchained number 7. Okay, look, we can all agree that the Unchained armor is undoubtedly badass looking. That's not my point here. My gripe is the fact that Superman's wearing it. You see, Kal dons the armor when he realizes that he's vulnerable to attack from the weapons wielded by General Lane's army. And the suit, which comes with a hammer and shield, is able to withstand a few blows that supposedly would have one-shot the Man of Steel. Okay then, so why does he need a shield? He is Superman after all, it's not like he needs anything other than his fists for combat. Or better yet, why doesn't he just ditch the suit altogether and just keep the shield, as it proves to be far more effective at sponging blows from Lane's weapons than the armor is. And don't even get me started on the hammer, which is literally only there to rip off Mjolnir. Not to mention how uncharacteristic and lazy it is of Superman just to put on thicker armor when a greater threat presents itself. Because it would have been much more satisfying to see Superman outwit his opponent instead of just out-tanking him. Like, okay, DC, listen up. Maybe you can use this design for some sort of Thor, Darth Maul, Megazord hybrid character, but Superman, guy doesn't need it. Give it to someone else. At number 6, we have Iron Man's nose from Iron Man number 68. There's change in the air. I can smell it. One of the most iconic examples of a redesign gone wrong, we have that period of time where Tony Stark thought it would be a good idea to include a nose in his mask to make him look more expressive and help strike fear into the heart of his enemies. Buddy, the only thing you're striking me with is an intense desire to laugh in your face, because let's face it, the addition of a big metal nose ain't exactly intimidating. Now you might be wondering why Marvel would even give him a nose in the first place. Well, the story goes that one day Stan Lee was complaining about one of the studio's new artists. See, Stan thought that Tony's eyes were too close to the surface of the helmet for there to be any room for a nose underneath the mask, and so Stan asked, where's his nose? The editors took this to mean that Iron Man should have a nose, and so they gave him one. That is, until Stan caught wind of the change a few issues later and demanded that the editors change it back. At number 5, we have Hawkeye's tunic in Avengers number 72. Good lord, dude! Pants! Not only is Hawkeye one of the bravest Avengers on account of him being super powerless, but to stand shoulder to shoulder with Earth's mightiest heroes in what's effectively a dress is a whole new level of courage. Not to mention that this was right after some very questionable decisions led to Hank Pym turning Hawkeye into the size-changing Goliath. Not to mention that this was right after some very questionable decisions that led to Hank Pym turning Hawkeye into the size-changing Goliath, who sports an equally decisive costume, that one including those redundant bolted shoulder and waist straps. Sorry to say, buddy, but this fit just makes you look arrogant. Arrogant? No? Okay, I tried. At number 4, we have Captain America's exoskeleton, debuting in Captain America number 438. On yet another edition of Why Does This Hero Need a Whole Suit of Armor, we have Captain America. And while his excuse is a little better than Superman's, it's still pretty lame. You see, Steve Rogers became completely paralyzed by an illness brought on by the very super soldier serum that granted him his superpowers in the first place. And so in order to allow Cap to continue his crime-fighting career, Tony Stark fashioned him this exoskeleton. And after getting some implants that would enable him to operate it, Cap was back in action. Now, I've included this one on the list because the whole concept is a bit ridiculous. I mean, super soldier serum induced paralysis just makes the serum itself completely redundant. Like, if you wanted to give Cap an Iron Man suit, just give Cap an Iron Man suit and do away with the whole degenerative disease nonsense. I mean, Spidey got an Iron Man suit, more than one, and he didn't need to get paralyzed to earn it. At number 3, we have Plaid Daredevil. Okay, this next one is seriously cruel, and if you laugh, your soul is going straight to Mephisto. This panel comes from What If Volume 2 number 17, the comic that asks, what if Daredevil had a dishonest tailor? To which Kingpin and Punisher are seen laughing in his face. See, I think this is dumb, not because of the plaid, although it is pretty ugly, but because it's uncharacteristic. You see, Daredevil wouldn't have gotten ripped off. He can't. He can literally smell fear and dishonesty. It's what makes him such a good lawyer. So either this universe's Daredevil is missing one of his most crucial hyper senses, or he's Canadian. Either way, it's nothing to laugh about. At number 2, we have Hulk, the Horseman of War from Incredible Hulk number 456. That's right, not only has Hulk been a villain, an Avenger, a space gladiator, and the conqueror of entire planets, but now we can add first non-mutant war horseman of the apocalypse to his resume as well. His armor, made from celestial tech, allows him to accomplish feats of strength with ease, which the irregular Hulk would probably find at least a little strenuous, like picking up and tossing an entire Egyptian pyramid, for instance. His helmet also has the added bonus of calming his inner demons, allowing the Hulk to become more cold and calculated. And if I'm being honest with you guys, the real reason I included this costume on the list is because it makes Hulk look like a jacked version of Marvin the Martian. Am I the only one who's made this connection? Can't be. And at number 1, we have Mangaverse's Black Panther, who made his very first in-costume appearance in Marvel Mangaverse Eternity Twilight. The Marvel Mangaverse has plenty of questionable redesigns. I'm looking at you, Spider Gloves. But when it comes to the King of Wakanda, boy oh boy did they do him dirty. See, instead of utilizing the vibranium of his homeland to build himself a super suit, T'Challa of Earth 2301 seems to have replaced his sacred herb powers with the spirit of Kwamatha, transforming him into a furry. As if things weren't furry enough with Tigra around, who, after watching T'Challa transform, immediately gets the heart-shaped eyes for him, anime style. Okay, look, maybe I wouldn't have so much hate for the suit if there was a suit to begin with, as the king's suggestively shaped loincloth leaves very little to the imagination, and the bat ears. Ugh, why is he the only anthropomorph with hyper-realistic ears?
Kicking off the list at number 10 is Spawn. Of all the super suits, Spawn's may be one of the coolest. Spawn wears a living symbiotic costume called Letha of the 7th House of K, or K7 Letha. Unlike a symbiote though, Al Simmons dominates the suit instead of it trying to call the shots. But that doesn't mean the suit can't help him out. The shrouds, spikes, chains, and skulls on the suit are all part of the organism that is the suit, and it's all bonded to Al's central nervous system. So, the suit itself will protect Spawn even in the rare occasion that he is knocked unconscious. The costume is powered and feeds on the necroplasm inside of Spawn's body. Now, I know that sounds like a bad thing, but Al is totally able to draw this energy back to him when he needs it, using it to power his abilities without draining his own reserves. What's really cool is that K7 Letha can also feed off the ambient evil energy of people, animals, and even certain parts of cities. For example, Detroit, New York City, Los Angeles, etc, etc. As most people know, Al does have great magical power, but that power does have a limit. So, for the most part, Al relies on the suit's augmentation of his physical power, plus its ability to shapeshift. The suit can manifest spikes, armor plating, and the shroud itself is a really effective offensive tool, able to strike with extreme precision. He has used it to sever limbs, disarm enemies, and he has even transformed the shroud into a super sweet battle axe. Number 9, Blue Beetle. There have been many Blue Beetles over time, and as they shifted, so did the technology that they use. But unlike Dan Garrett or Ted Kord, Jaime Reyes managed to bond with the Blue Beetle Scarab, which provided him with the suit that he wears, and it is sick. Similar to Spawn, Jaime's suit is also sentient and symbiotic, but it's pretty damn dangerous. It has the power to completely destroy a planet, and that's what it was intended to do. But thankfully, those who have been in possession of it have been able to override this prime directive and use its power for good. Although the Scarab can and will act of its own accord, like when Jaime has been knocked unconscious, like Spawn, or even when Jaime has been mind controlled. Normally, it just kind of does what Jaime tells it to do. With such powerful tech, the Beetle can hold his own against the likes of a Green Lantern, since its power cuts through Green Lantern energy projections, and it can even take on Superman, creating kryptonite weapons to counter Kryptonian physiology. That's because the suit can create tools to fight against whatever threat it happens to be facing, while also shielding Reyes from any attacks from those same sources. It also looks pretty dope compared to the other Blue Beetles, and Iron Man himself, so that's a plus.
At number 8 is the Extrema Blade armor, because if you're looking for something cooler than a symbiote like Venom, look no further than this cyborg symbiote, my friend. You see, this suit was originally one of many symbiote dragons, yes, you heard me right, dragons, but Tony got a hold of it and was able to reverse engineer engineer the symbiote technology using a techno-organic extremis virus, rewriting the symbiote's DNA and severing its connection to the whole hive mind, giving Tony full control of the symbiote. Well, as much control as one could have over a symbiote. And speaking of which, here's a nice little fun fact. Symbiotes aren't aliens. Well, I mean, they are, as in they come from another planet, but they aren't naturally occurring creatures produced by nature. Instead, they're a synthetic life form created by this alien dude named Null. The more you know. Anyway, tangent over, back to the armor. Now, even though this new symbiote-infused suit was a vast upgrade over the standalone Model 70, Tony would soon lose control over it after Carnage called out to Tony's symbiote from within the hive mind, forcing the suit to constrict with Tony inside, crushing Tony and snapping a few limbs and ribs in the process. Ouch. Now let's talk capabilities. The Extrema Blade is a unique mix of synthetic alien life and Stark's latest tech, which means it's got all kinds of cool tricks up its sleeve? Like, for example, the symbiote's ability to manipulate its form and project tendrils or increase its body mass considerably. Or how about the upgraded repulsor beam, now equipped to blast the corruption right off of Null's victims? He's also used the Extrema Blade as what I can only describe as a celestial dongle so that he can take control of an even more powerful celestial body, which we're about to break down in the next entry. But by far the coolest ability is the fact that this suit allows Tony to fly around in style as the thing can morph into a freaking symbiote dragon. Yes, you heard me right, Iron Man riding dragons. Guys, we're only on number 8 here. At number 7, the Celestial Armor. Well, what do we have here? Is that a Celestial or Iron Man? The answer is a resounding yes. So believe it or not, this hijacked Celestial body is actually supposed to be a Hulkbuster model, because when you're dealing with the strongest being on Earth, you can't be too cautious. As a Hulkbuster, the Celestial has been retrofitted with technology designed to drain the gamma radiation out of the Hulk so that he can be safely apprehended. Though, unfortunately, things don't go quite as planned, because the Hulk is actually able to replenish his gamma rays self-sufficiently. Now maybe the Iron Man still would have been able to beat the Hulk, but we'll never truly know since the armor was accidentally struck by Thor's hammer, as he's been unable to completely control it on account of the fact that Odin's soul is trapped inside of it. Now even despite getting a blow from Mjolnir and being put into critical condition, the armor was still able to battle for a few more pages on account of its ability to repair and heal itself autonomously, a feature which every Iron Man suit and iPhone should have. It even sucked back a direct hit from the Hulk's rage-induced eye lasers. That's a new one. But ultimately, the suit was destroyed after a pinned-down Hulk released a nuclear blast of radiation big enough to be seen from space, and it still protected Tony from getting fried to a crisp inside. Look, I don't care if it ultimately lost the fight. The fact that it stood up for so long against the Hulk and Mjolnir simultaneously puts the suit of armor in a league of its own. At number 6, we have the Iron Destroyer. Here's a freaking awesome mashup of Iron Man's design with that of the Destroyer, the iconic enchanted suit of Asgardian armor. Iron Man's bleeding edge nanotech armor was already a huge upgrade from his previous designs, but during the War of the Serpent, which saw numerous villains sport Asgardian weapons, Odin was left with no choice but to give Tony access to the legendary Nordic Forge of Navaldir, where he utilized Uru, which is the Asgardian metal that composes Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, to give himself and his fellow Avengers some epic Asgardian upgrades. And so, after Tony and the dwarves designed some new tools for the homies, Stark got into his bleeding edge suit and lowered himself into the vat of molten Uru, and after receiving a divine blessing from Odin, the bleeding edge armor infused with the Uru, evolving it into the Iron Destroyer. Now once the battle was over, Tony gave all that Uru back to Odin, but while he had it, the man's suit of armor was indestructible. Cause, ladies and gentlemen, unless your name is Hela, this sexy suit is basically invincible. Now, we know that one of the properties of Uru is the absorption of magic, so we can infer that the Iron Destroyer sports similar abilities, but unfortunately, we'll never know for certain because the armor didn't even get a singular battle scene, despite countless pages of hype and buildup, making this suit the second biggest missed opportunity in Iron Man's history. That's right, second. And here's the first. At number 5, the Galactus Buster. No entry on this list makes me geek out as much as this one does, because for those of you who don't know, and I'm assuming that's most of you, because the only way you would have ever seen this panel of art is if you had used Iron Man to defeat Galactus and unlocked his ending in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. That's a video game for all of you boomers out there. That single sarcastic comment is gonna earn me leagues of hate. I can already feel it. Wow, I've been playing Marvel vs. Capcom games since before you were born. Yeah, okay, save it, Gramps. So like I was saying, the only trace of this suit's existence would have come in those 2 panels that conclude Tony's ending in the game, as well as a few lines of monologue where Stark explains that while he did defeat Galactus, he only barely managed to do so, and so using data collected during his fight, he fashioned himself the Galactus Buster armor to ensure that he would be better prepared in case the Cosmic Planet Eater ever came back for seconds. Now the only other time we get to see see a Galactus Iron Man combo like this is in the unused cover art which was teased for the Armor Wars saga. And while the Galactus Buster's appearance in this series would have been monumental, both figuratively and literally, we sadly happened to inhabit the reality in which that's all we were given. And it's a shame too, because this particular character mashup is a cosmically sized missed opportunity. At number 4, the Godkiller armor. At number 4, the Godkiller armor. If we weren't already in S tier, we definitely are now. After discovering the remains of a Celestial locked away inside of a Dyson sphere out there in the cosmos, some Magellan recorder decided that the armor would best be used as essentially a nuclear deterrent to bring about world peace to the universe, because you know, the only way to achieve world peace is obviously through bigger, more destructive weapons. Dunce. Anyways, this recorder needed a perfect pilot, and to that end, he selected Howard Stark and genetically engineered his unborn son in order to conceive of a suitable pilot for the celestial body. But even after turning Tony into a GMO, along with countless other unspeakable atrocities, in the end Tony was unable to control the armor, and so all that effort was in vain. Realizing this, the recorder transported the armor to an empty dimension where it could never fall into the wrong hands. That is, until Tony took what he learned and made a version of his own, because of course he did! He keeps his absolute megalith of a Mark II in standby orbiting around Mars, and just to add a little extra flex on Elon, the suit can be summoned to Earth in a matter of minutes without exploding. A feat that could only be possible if the thing was traveling at or close to the speed of freaking light. Now this is able to be accomplished by the fact that this bad boy is powered by not 1, not 2, but 8 nuclear reactors. Now although this suit is ultimately defeated, it took an entire celestial horde to do it, but just the fact that this giant hunk of metal can even stand up against a single dark celestial goes vastly beyond the realm of impressive. At number 3, Godbuster. Now before I get into this one, the comics can't decide whether to call this one the Godbuster or Godkiller, but Tony himself introduces it as the Godbuster, so that's what I'll be going with to distinguish it from the last entry. The Godbuster suit of armor represents the very pinnacle of Stark's engineering genius, and has even been described as, quote, Tony's masterpiece, the ultimate weapon. Now for as epic as this ultimate weapon is, unfortunately Tony has the suit destroyed along with all the components required for its construction almost as soon as he builds it, as Tony himself believed that the suit was simply too powerful to even be allowed to exist. Hot damn. As a matter of fact, the armor was so intricate in design that it shouldn't even be physically possible to even conceive of its design in the first place, as he was only able to do so within the confines of the virtual reality he developed called Escape. This allowed him to utilize the upper limits of his unleashed imagination from the restraints of the human brain. After coming back from the Escape, Tony used his bleeding edge 3D printers to construct the armor in real life, albeit with the limitations of his meaty monkey brain still causing the intricacies of the design to fade from his memory. But what are the features that deem this suit worthy of such hype? Well, aside from the ultra powerful unibeam and the fact that this suit seems to have gotten hidden repulsor cannons out the wazoo, we don't really get much action from the Godbuster. All we can really do is take Stark's word for it. At number 2 is Emperor Stark. Okay, this next entry is a bit of a tangent from the others, but I'm including it here because this alternate Tony was elected Emperor of the planet for life, making him quite literally the most powerful person on Earth. Meaning this entry is supremely powerful thanks to a technicality, not his armor. So if you want to cut to the most powerful Iron Man suit of all time, go ahead and skip to number 1. But as for Emperor Stark, although from the outside it may seem that this reluctant hero was given the mantle with a heavy and humble heart, in reality it was Tony's plan all along to assume dominance as the undisputed monarch of Earth, as he engineered the very threats that forced the world to yield their power over to him. Firstly, he secretly orchestrated the Mutant War simply in an attempt to thin out the world's superhuman population, with Captain America and Mr. Fantastic among the defeated. So after betraying his race and secretly helping the mutants win the war for the promise of co-dominating the planet, he then went and betrayed Magneto, making this double-crossing double-crosser the hero of the conflict. But according to Tony, soldiers don't make for good leaders, so his ascension to power truly began during the Great Famine, when a powerful virus, which was secretly developed by Stark Industries, not unlike the mad cow disease, left most animals unfit for human consumption. And within a year of the outbreak, a new strain of fungal rot, also secretly developed by Stark, devastated half the world's wheat population and millions of lives were lost to famine, until Tony came out later with vaccines and countermeasures that would earn him a Nobel Prize and eventually lead to his presidential candidacy after winning the election by a landslide. And once he developed the tech to control weather and seismic activity to cause natural disasters of biblical proportions while simultaneously pulling some strings to cause economic collapse, he got the other nations of the world to yield their power over to him voluntarily. In the end, all he had to do was stage a battle with Dr. Doom, which completely leveled Washington DC, wiping from the face of the earth nearly every federally elected representative, the entire Supreme Court, and along with them, America's democratic system, making evil Tony over here one of the most formidable beings to ever dominate the world. Oh, and I guess his suit ain't too shabby either, although there's nothing that sets it apart from the other Iron Man suits besides the cape. At number 1, we have Iron God. Just when you thought his suits couldn't get any more absurdly powerful, boom. Iron God. This stupendously powerful suit of armor is a divine makeover of Model 70 after Stark and Korvac were bestowed with the unthinkable godlike abilities thanks to the power cosmic, the essence of the cosmos itself. Then the two unleash those powers upon each other in the most epic space battle of cosmic proportions, crashing into moons and using entire planets as launching pads, and naturally causing collateral chaos on an interplanetary and even interdimensional scale that gets so out of hand that the Living Tribunal themselves have to step in to help end the fight, bringing along with them some extra equally powerful cosmic beings for good measure. After apprehending Korvac, the Tribunal decides to let Stark retain his divinity, and so Stark goes back to Earth, now capable of transforming the world as he sees fit. His first gift to Earth as Iron God was to bestow everyone in the city with his genius level intelligence, to the dismay of Reed Richards, who says he actually feels a bit dumber. He turns haters into yes men with a snap of his fingers, turns Silver Surfer into a silver puddle, and, well, on that note, pretty much one-shot every single hero who disagreed with him. It wasn't until he one-punched Rhodey so hard his head turned all the way around that he realized his power had gotten to his head. So he revives everybody and apologizes profusely, eventually giving up the power cosmic. Biggest reason why narcissists shouldn't be gods, but while he was one, if you want to look for OP, then look no further. The only limits of Iron God's powers are his imagination, which makes this suit of armor the most powerful Iron Man suit of all time, hands down.
At number 10, we have a pretty obscure and short-lived armor that appears in Fantastic Four number 375, only 25 issues after his true self is finally revealed. So why does he already need a suit upgrade after 25 issues? Well, to absorb the power of a Watcher, of course. Watchers, if you don't know, are one of the most powerful, omnipotent, and oldest beings in the cosmos. We all know that Dr. Doom's abilities allow him to absorb powers from others, but to have a specific suit made so he could actually absorb a Watcher is a huge step in the right direction for him, and a huge step in the wrong direction for the good guys. It's unclear why his normal armor couldn't absorb the likes of a Watcher without an upgrade, but it seems to be due to the fact that this armor is just stronger. And it also has spikes on it, which is always cool. Alright, at number 9 is a pretty fun one. Are you ready? Doom the Living Planet. Okay, this is the suit of all suits. He is literally a planet. Now, this takes the definition of suit to a new place for this list, and it's important we hash this out now. I'm considering any change of appearance of Doom as a new suit as long as his abilities change and or the new appearance also gives him added useful advantages. So, how Dr. Doom finds himself in this position, turning into a planet, is that he's basically getting older and senses that he's gonna die soon. So he basically morphs with the powers of Ego the Living Planet and buys himself more time in existence, in the form of, once again, a planet who wipes out life on Earth entirely, or the humans at least. But what makes this suit, it's a suit, alright? I'm putting my foot down on that. What makes this suit so useful is that aside from it granting so much power that he can take out all of humanity, it grants him more time to live in his old age. So granting extended life sort of surpasses the term useful and goes into the territory of amazing, unmatched, unfairly beneficial. It also allows Doom to spend more time scheming and finding ways to push his agenda and make everyone else's lives just a little harder. At number 8 is the Blue Beetle armor. This hyper-adaptive and seemingly sentient armor proves that sometimes the suit really does make the man, or whatever the saying is. And in this case, I'm referring to Jamie Ray's Blue Beetle armor, which has been known to withstand attacks from the likes of Superman and Green Lantern. But aside from the amazing defensive stat that the suit offers, there's also a whole array of offensive potential that it brings to the table. For example, due to the suit's symbiotic nature, it can actually craft weapons on command that best suit the enemy the wearer is facing in the moment. Like the time when Superman is in opposition to Blue Beetle and the suit crafts kryptonite weapons in preparation for the fight. A suit that's basically alive and has the ability to turn any regular mortal into a pretty high-ranking superhero definitely deserves a spot on this list and would rank much higher if we didn't have plenty more powerful entries to cover coming up. At number 7 is the Hellbat armor worn by Bruce Wayne. Forged by the rest of the Justice League, the Hellbat armor is what you get when you befriend the most powerful and influential superheroes in the DC universe. And considering that Batman began as a super powerless detective, seeing him wearing this suit of armor gives us pause for a moment, realizing how far he's really come. The suit is given a speed test by the Flash, It's given a technological foundation designed by Cyborg, and is forged in the center of the sun by Superman himself. The armor is so powerful that the intention in creating it is to help a human with no superhuman abilities withstand the cosmic level escapades that arrive on the Justice League's doorstep on the daily. The only downside for the suit is that it runs on Bruce Wayne's metabolism and eventually kills him if worn for too long. But he's got some good friends to ensure he doesn't take it too far. I mean, not everyone gets to say that their friends have crafted them superpowered suits of armor just to make them feel included. At number 6 is the very powerful, one and only Black Panther suit, Black Panther Habit. I think it's fair to say that the Wakandans have the technology and armor game on lock, with only Tony Stark as their competition at this point. With their access to vast vibranium reserves right on their home soil, they can craft some of the most invulnerable and dynamic supersuits of all time. The suit T'Challa wears is known to be totally bulletproof and nearly indestructible, all while staying totally lightweight and aerodynamic. But the most notable feature is, of course, the energy redistribution property which vibranium offers by nature. And taking advantage of this feature, Shuri's craftsmanship allows for the suit to let out a kinetic energy pulse on command, which proves to be one of the defining features of the suit. Black Panther Habit is also outfitted with a dynamic comms system and the signature vibranium claws, which T'Challa uses to slice through, ironically, some of the toughest armors out there. Not to mention the suit can materialize onto the wearer on command, making it just about as versatile as it could ever need to be. At number 5 we have Armor, like the hero named Armor, the mutant named Armor's armor. First appearing in Joss Whedon's astonishing X-Men, Hisako Ichiki is a superhero who goes by the mantle Armor. She has the power to summon a transparent suit of armor which grows in durability based on her memories of her ancestors. Basically, the more members of her bloodline die, the stronger the armor will get. This suggests that the armor doesn't really have a ceiling on how powerful it can become. Hisako also has the ability to control the size and weaponry of the armor on command, one time even holding her own in a face-off against Fin Fang Foom. The only weaknesses the armor has are that it can't block lasers and it can't block adamantium. This is demonstrated when Wolverine's claws pass right through the suit, but stop when his fist is held back from pushing them in any further. Although this is a pretty significant set of vulnerabilities, the armor is so durable that it still deserves a higher spot on this list. I mean, it can withstand a blow by the Muramasa blade, which is known to kill regenerative mutants with ease. So there's that. At number 4 we have Spider-Man's Iron Spider armor, designed by Stark Industries. This suit sports the signature Waldos, as they're called, on his back, which help with everything from mobility to reconnaissance, since each arm has a high-def camera on the tip. It also has a glider built in, which can greatly extend the distance between web swings. Of course, it has a massively increased durability stat and a mask filter that can be used to protect against dangerous gases, and even used for underwater navigation as long as it doesn't exceed the 8-minute compressed air capacity. And just to keep Spidey from needing to use his own regeneration powers, the suit itself has its own repair system that can self-repair damage in real time. This suit has it all, and when Spider-Man is given this much to work with in combination with his already versatile power set, it's easy to imagine how much more effective of a hero he can be. At number 3 is Batman's Justice Buster armor. With all the insane suits that Bruce Wayne has used over the years, you best believe that there'd be another of his on this list. As the name suggests, the suit is originally designed to combat the Justice League when they go against him during Batman Endgame. Quite different from the Hellbat armor, it's kind of the opposite. For the Flash, there's the Red Run gun controlled by an aimbot with servers that process at speeds faster than the Flash's movements. For Aquaman, there's a shoulder cannon that fires this pink foam which dehydrates the target. Then there's an electromagnetic nerve tree, as it's called, which can paralyze Cyborg's mechanical operations. For the Green Lantern, there's a citrine neutralizer which uses yellow quartz to prevent him from using his powers endowed by the ring. And for Wonder Woman, it's got the Bind of Veils, which is an interesting one. It's a lasso made of an ancient sheep's wool that entraps the target and freezes them in a state of perceived victory, since Wonder Woman never relents. And finally, for Superman, there is a plasma shield that deflects his heat vision, as well as the red giant knuckles, which contain multiple miniature red suns, which are another of Superman's weaknesses. So although these features are quite particular to a battle with the Justice League, there's no question that this suit is one of the most powerful superhero suits of all time. At number 2, we have the Exo Manowar armor. At number 2, we have the Exo Manowar armor. This is the only entry on the list that comes from Valiant Comics, and it's a big one. This suit of armor is unique in that it is so powerful that it has its own presence and reputation before the wearer even comes into play. Almost like the Destroyer armor, which is an honorable mention on this list. But the Manowar armor is actually guilty of killing its wearers if it deems they aren't worthy of its use. But when it does find a user, boy does it offer a huge power boost. When it chooses its new owner, Arik, the suit literally makes him into a king. By putting on the suit, the wearer basically gets the benefit of laser blasters, an extremely durable exoskeleton, and of course the gift of flight, among many other benefits. The suit also brings the Chosen One a huge level of respect, considering the armor itself is ancient and has been worshipped like a god by an entire race of people for centuries. On a list about powerful suits, this just strikes me as the suit of all suits, and only gets clinched for the first position because of who rightfully deserves it overall. And that is Iron Man at number 1. With the God Buster, aka Model 63 armor. First appearing in Tony Stark Iron Man number 10, this suit of armor is just beyond comprehension in so many ways, to the point where after designing it, Stark actually feels the need to destroy it immediately after. First designing the suit in a virtual reality system called Escape, Stark has free reign to design any suit he could ever dream of with limitless capabilities. And what we end up with is the God Buster armor. And once it comes to life in the VR landscape, Tony decides he wants to create a real one. What's slightly frustrating about this armor though is that not much is known about its true capabilities because of how quickly it's put out of commission. But Tony's brother Arno deems it Tony's masterpiece, and Ironheart gets unprecedented power level readings when she scans it. We can assume that the massive cannon on the back and the complex network of tubes and wires have the ability to stop even the most powerful of enemies, but that's still all we really know about it. Either way, if one was to doubt this suit's abilities, I could easily replace this number 1 spot with Iron Man's God Killer Mark II armor, which deserves this spot just as readily. Sorry, but Tony Stark is just the king of super suits. It's all he's got after all.
At number 10, we have the Sapien Deathmatch armor. Not only does this suit have an absolutely badass name, but it's even got the design to match, looking more like a mech from manga or anime than anything else. The suit made its debut during the House of M storyline, where a war between humans and mutants occurs after Scarlet Witch does some reality rewriting. In this reality, Stark Industries was contracted to create the Sentinels, but thanks to Howard Stark, those very same Sentinels end up fighting against Tony, not alongside him. So in retaliation, Tony builds himself this epic suit of armor in secret. The suit's most prominent feature was this extendable hand cannon, though it boasts countless other weapons, from unibeams to heat-seeking missiles to tasers to flamethrowers, and of course, what Iron Man's suit would be complete without the obligatory repulsor beam. But the suit's wackiest feature has got to be those massive wings, with a design that looks to be inspired by my air conditioner. But before I start bringing down the real powerful suits of armor, if you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Now that mandatory plea for engagement is over, let's talk number 9, Anti-Transformer armor. Forget DC, I want to see some Marvel v Transformer action on the big screen, baby. But until that fateful day comes, we're just gonna have to be content with the Avengers Transformers comic book saga from back in 07. See, Tony is a fan of making tailored suits of armors to serve as contingency plans, like in the case of the Hulkbuster, for example. So you already know that when Tony heard of rumors of giant alien robots hiding amongst the citizens of Earth, he just had to go and whip up a brand new suit of armor specifically designed to combat the new threat, mano a mano. However, considering the sheer scale of the project, Stark ended up needing a lot more time to build the thing than he got, forcing him to put the suit into action despite utilizing a battery pack which severely undersupplied the suit's vast energy demands, leading to power management issues which would lead this energy-intensive behemoth of a suit to run out of juice quite quickly. Tony tried to circumvent this problem on the fly with the help of Optimus Prime by routing the battery to an external power supply, but doing so presented an equal and opposite problem, as fueling the suit in this way caused it to be prone to overloading the battery.
Alright, at number 8 is the Power Cosmic suit. In Fantastic Four issue 60, Dr. Doom steals the Power Cosmic from the Silver Surfer, which gives him a huge boost in powers and abilities, naturally. If you're unfamiliar with the Power Cosmic, basically it's a source of almost limitless power, originally honed by Galactus himself, and given Doctor Doom's ability to absorb the power of others, of course his sights are set on gaining this enormous advantage from the Silver Surfer. The only reason why this suit isn't higher up on the list is because it's arguable that these abilities aren't synonymous with the suit he's wearing for his short time wielding the power cosmic. However, he does gain an accessory that would argue counts as part of his suit, and that is the Silver Surfer's board. Although for the span of only 2 issues, Doctor Doom is able to fly around the world at unmatched speeds, absorb basically any energy near him, create energy blasts from nothing, and manipulate matter like he is a god. I mean, he arguably is a god for this time, but even if all he acquired was the Silver Surfer's board, that's still a huge benefit that would still put him on this list. Next up at number 7 is the Secret Wars #1 armor. This armor gains a sleek design and a more vast power set after he absorbs the powers of the Beyonder. During this storyline, the Beyonder takes basically every superhero and supervillain and places them into a world called Battle World to face off for a prize of their choosing. So, as they all start to fight, Doctor Doom sets his sights elsewhere. He decides to focus on the Master of Ceremonies himself, the Beyonder, and he gets what he wants, absorbing the Beyonder's nearly limitless power and transforming into a giant version of himself. This also changes his armor to be more streamlined as well, making him all around more capable of taking on foes in this Hunger Games-esque world. He even uses his newfound power to blast none other than Captain America to smithereens, and also Kang the Conqueror, along with a few other superheroes. He's basically a god, and this suit only sits further back on this list because it may not be the suit itself giving him the extra advantage here, but his armor does change in appearance with his newfound power, so the rules I said earlier still apply. So even if this power comes first, it's forever attached to this particular Doctor Doom suit from this storyline. Fight me on it in the comments. I'll reply to you. Okay, at number 6, we have the suit worn by Victor Von Doom during the Secret Wars 2 storyline. This time, the multiverse is at stake, and multiple versions of Earth are in danger of colliding with one another, so the heroes and villains alike are tasked with trying to stop this from happening naturally. And with Doctor Doom being one of the most powerful out of all of them, he decides to take the lead on this project. But what really gives him the extra boost and lands this suit near the top of the list is when Molecule Man basically endows him with the power to manipulate pretty much any matter that exists in reality in any way that he wants. And when he's given this strength, his suit also changes its look, giving Doom the new moniker of God Emperor Doom. This suit has a sweet silver design, making Doctor Doom look more like an actual god than ever before. And for good reason too, because he sort of is. Lots of godlike suits on this list so far. Anyway, when Namor and Black Panther try to take him on, they think they've killed him with a spear throw, because he explodes into little pieces. But, much to their dismay, he regenerates, muttering something like, "Ouch, that hurt." This is a brand new level for Victor Von Doom, who can also create whole planets now from nothing, which he does in an attempt to solve the collapsing multiverse. And well, do we all agree that this is due to the suit he wears? Maybe not. But he rips Thanos' spine out of his body with his bare hands. So I felt like I had to put this iteration of Doom on the list. His suit changes, and maybe Molecule Man endowed the suit with abilities instead of Victor himself. A stretch? Once again, let's fight it out in the comments. At number 5, we have the Doom 2099 suit. In the series Doom 2099, Doctor Doom travels to the future to Latveria, the fictional European country that Doctor Doom is normally the ruler of. But somebody named Tiger Wilde is in his place, and his advanced technology is just too much for Doctor Doom to handle, so what does Doctor Doom do? He goes back to the workshop and builds himself what is basically known to be his strongest and most advanced armor yet. Aside from just looking really cool, this suit has a few new upgrades that help him get his old position of power back. This would include a phase shifter, which allows him to pass through solid objects, as well as a cyberspace link built into his armor. This allows him to gain access to cyberspace almost instantly and anywhere he is, as long as he's wearing the armor. Naturally, this helps Doom get his power back as he fights for Latveria alongside his allies. It's impressive what new armor can do to get you back on track, even when you're already one of the most powerful supervillains in the cosmos. Okay, at number 4 is Dr. Doom's Vibranium suit. This suit is put together by Dr. Doom when he swoops into Wakanda and steals a bunch of their vibranium reserves. For those of you who don't know vibranium, it's basically a highly durable metal that can absorb sonic energy, basically taking all of the force out of any impact that makes contact with the material. Due to this metal's abilities, it's one of the most valuable in the world, so when Wakanda finds itself vulnerable, Dr. Doom takes advantage and steals a bunch of it. The suit he makes looks pretty cool too, taking on a really menacing look with spikes and a glowing chest piece. But one of the biggest uses for this suit is that it apparently helps the wearer see all of the vibranium in the world. So for someone who's interested in strengthening their own personal weaponry or putting together a powerful army, this suit isn't just beneficial in its power. There's a huge advantage to locating and gaining access to the raw materials needed for a powerful, well-armored army. And Dr. Doom knows this, so his sights are then by all means set on finding more vibranium with this suit's new ability. Luckily for Wakanda, but also sort of sadly for them too, T'Challa is forced to render all the vibranium in the world powerless, making it also useless in its powers, at least for the uses that Dr. Doom had planned for it. But yeah, the Dr. Doom vibranium suit. For the time being, it was pretty dang useful. At number 3 is the Dr. Juggernaut suit from the Heroes Reborn crossover event in 2021. In this storyline, Victor Von Doom is after more riches, but this time specifically the Gem of Sidorak, which, if you know your X-Men lore, is the source that gives Juggernaut his powers. And his look, I guess, because Dr. Doom doesn't just gain the insane super strength of Juggernaut, he also takes on the appearance of the villain as well. This suit is huge, bulky, and gives Doom enough confidence to try and take over the United States of America. He goes in and attacks different locations in Washington, D.C. in the hopes of setting himself up with a new moniker of President of the United States. Why are all these villains always after taking over America? I mean, don't they also find themselves going out into the cosmos to wage war for much greater causes and higher stakes? I guess there's just something about the White House that really gets these guys going. Anyway, this suit is sort of short-lived because Hyperion comes in and banishes Dr. Doom to the negative zone. I guess he just flies a little too close to the sun on this one. I mean, let's be honest. A target is painted right on his back as soon as he pairs up his powers with Juggernaut. They had to put a stop to that before it got out of hand. Next up at number 2 is the 2099 upgraded suit. Yes, believe it or not, there are 2 versions of the Dr. Doom suit in this storyline. As he's pushing to take back Latveria, his allies start to question his abilities and even his identity, wondering if it's truly the real Dr. Doom behind the suit. So, as he finally gets control back over his country, he also decides he wants to take over the US as well. See? That strange obsession with taking over America again. Anyway, in this event, he decides to flaunt his superiority by upgrading his suit again. And above all the abilities that this suit might have, it just looks the coolest out of any others on this list. At this point, he's upgraded his abilities to offer him a remote that automatically activates his time platform for him when he needs it, as well as a return to form with his boombots and the classic shrink ray. He also covers his eye slits with a red glass, making his appearance that much more menacing. And the biggest use of this suit in that crucial moment for Victor, which puts it higher on this list, is the simple yet essential function of galvanizing his troops and reminding them who their true leader is, in a time when he's in danger of losing his followers. Okay, finally at number 1, we have the Dr. Doom infamous Iron Man suit. So, after the events of Civil War II, Dr. Doom's mask has come off and he's suddenly ready to try and make up for his past evil deeds. And coincidentally, Tony Stark also seems to be ready for a replacement. So Doom makes it his prerogative to take up the role of Iron Man and play hero for a while. The suit he wears as the new infamous Iron Man looks basically sort of how you'd imagine it looking. It's like an upgraded Iron Man suit with the iconic Dr. Doom cloak. But something about this combo just looks so cool. And it appears that it has some pretty unique features as well, like what appears to be a certain level of protection against harm without the suit even being activated yet. which is probably Doom's iconic force field, but mixed with the access to blasts of energy out of his hands and as well as flight and increased strength, it's pretty much a powerhouse, having Dr. Doom and Iron Man's abilities mixed all into one suit. Iron Man with force fields, Dr. Doom with jet boots. Need I say more? This suit is definitely something new for Victor and a good way for him to start on his path of good. I'd say hold on to this suit for future use, Victor. It might come in handy many more times in the future. At number 10, we have Steel. The origins of this hero are very wholesome, with Dr. John Henry finding motivation to become the newest version of Superman after trying to save the Kryptonian from Doomsday. And when he completes his mission, he ends up with one of the most powerful armors out of any comic book superhero ever. After showing his potential as a superhero with a massive sledgehammer and the courage to face Doomsday himself, John takes it upon himself to craft a fully protective supersuit and go by the name of Steel. On top of the offensive capabilities that his smart hammer offers, his suit brings to the table all the defensive stats he could ever need, as well as the mobility of a flying superhero due to the rocket boots attached to the armor as well. It's an all-around impressive piece of armor and endows Steel with enough protection to withstand attacks from the likes of the Eradicator as he tries to live up to one of the most coveted symbols to ever be worn on a superhero's chest. At number 9, we have the Rocket Red armor. Referring to the armor given to the Rocket Red Brigade members during the Green Lantern Corps comics, this dynamic armor deserves a spot on this list even if it comes as a bit obscure to some fans. This army of Soviet heroes are equipped with some of the most impressive armor out of any superhero. Aside from giving the wearer flight capabilities and upgraded defensive stats, the suits are even known to, in some cases, present a special mecha sense, meaning that the suit can influence other machines and take control of their movements for a time. Now, one Rocket Red suit is nothing compared to the Iron Man armor, which we'll of course be exploring later, but the fact that these suits seem to be mass produced and are easy enough to navigate, the suit gets a major power boost, especially given that multiple Rocket Red soldiers seem to be able to work them with what appears to be total ease.
Number 8, the Powers International Batsuit. Coming to us from Batman Super Heavy by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, the mechanized batsuit taking up our slot today is the GCPD's answer to what they can do when Batman himself is no longer around. In his place, Jim Gordon was chosen to step in as the new Caped Crusader, but of course, Jim isn't Bruce, and so the GCPD batsuit compensates for his lacking level of combat training. The suit itself was designed by Powers International and features electrified batarangs, thermal sonic arm cannons, caped-shaped bomb shield, digital camouflage, thermal detection vision, multi-response missile pods, and a built-in EKJ/defibrillator/ambulatory response system. That's a lot! The suit also doubles as a backup, operating somewhat autonomously on a nimble auto program, giving the suit enough combat know-how to effectively wield a pair of sharks as melee weapons. What even is that? Also, unlike Iron Man, this suit looks like Batman, which is obviously a positive. Number 7, Dark Hawk. Not enough people talk about Dark Hawk. A lot of people don't even know who this hero is, and that's ridiculous because he is dope. Even in his regular suit of armor, Dark Hawk is pretty powerful compared to Iron Man. The suit has the ability to literally travel through time, which we know that Tony's couldn't hope to even attempt, except for in the MCU. He's actually probably totally capable of time travel, but this is just a part of Dark Hawk's base suit. The Dark Hawk suit is advanced Shi'ar technology meshed with magic, which does a hell of a lot. Other than augmenting physical attributes, it can manifest offensive and defensive tools and is capable of traveling through space. Similar to Iron Man, Dark Hawk has a few different versions of his suits with different capabilities, but one of the best Dark Hawk pieces of armor was his Infinity Countdown suit, which looked cooler than the original, but it actually looks a little bit more like a mech, and it had to have the power to take down Geyer's army of raptors. Such an underrated hero with such an awesome suit. Number 6, Steel. When Superman fell at the hands of Doomsday, it was kind of a huge deal. In his place, a whole handful of heroes and even villains came in to try and fill the gap. One of them was the Man of Steel, Dr. John Henry Irons, or as we know him now, just Steel. When Superman was about to be taken off the board by Doomsday, Irons grabbed a big old sledgehammer and tried to fight the monster before being buried under a pile of rubble. Superman's sacrifice and the fact that he saved John motivated John to make a heroic mantle in honor of Superman, crafting his own supersuit. supersuit. Steel's power armor grants him a variety of abilities that enable him to be an effective Superman, and that factor alone puts the suit on a higher level than Iron Man. It just does. But besides the flight, strength, and endurance, kind of the most impressive piece of Steel's arsenal is his smart hammer. This hammer is so cool. It hits harder the further it is thrown, it can fly, and it can seek out the weak points of a target thanks to an onboard computer guidance system. It's almost like Mjolnir, but not magical. Number 5. Black Panther. You may not immediately think of Black Panther when thinking of powerful suits, and I think that's because the Wakandan technology in it is so advanced and stylistic that it's easy to forget that it even has those technologies in the first place. The obvious difference between Iron Man's armor and Black Panther's Panther habit is that one is made of vibranium, which is stronger than almost any other material, but its strength is just part of the benefit. It can also absorb, store, and release kinetic energy, giving it quite a bit more power material-wise than Tony's suits. That's because Iron Man's armor is traditionally made out of nickel titanium alloy, and that's pretty strong, I guess, but nothing compared to vibranium. Black Panther's iconic suit, on the other hand, is extremely resilient, and the material actually helps act as both a protectant and as a weapon. But then there are all the extra goodies. The lenses in the mask cut glare and enhance the Panther's natural night vision, and allow him to see in infrared and other visual spectrums. The claws can break down other metals on the molecular level. It has energy dampening boots, disguise and teleportation technology, and as most of us know from the MCU, it can release basically a force push, which is always cool. Number 4, the Hellbat suit. So we all know Batman is just a dude in a batsuit. He has to use his ingenuity and skill to defeat threats that metahumans can face one-on-one, but when the threat is too great, the metahumans he works with on the daily help him out. Enter the Hellbat suit. In Batman and Robin number 33 by Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, the Hellbat is the Justice League's gift to Batman. The Hellbat suit was actually forged by Superman inside of the sun. The Hellbat armor allows Batman to fly, run at super speed, while also boosting up his strength and durability. It comes with adaptive camouflage, a unibeam style energy blast, and a shape-shifting cape that turns into bats when it's ripped off. Obviously though, it has to have a downside, or there's no reason Bruce wouldn't wear it all the time. And that downside is that the suit slowly drains Bruce Wayne's life force and would actually put him in the grave if he wore it for too long. There's always a catch. Number 3, the Destroyer armor. To call the Destroyer a suit feels almost wrong. It's more like a robot, but at the same time, various characters have technically inhabited the armor, but with their souls, which become overridden with the Destroyer's sole purpose of battle and destruction. I could be wrong, but I don't believe there are any moments where a person physically inhabits the suit in the 616 continuity, but if there is, let me know in the comments down below. The Destroyer is extremely powerful and was created out of an unknown metal by Odin that was even stronger than Uru metal and stored various gods' energies, making it a level of magical power that exceeds almost any technological suit. I mean, the thing was created in order to battle the Celestials, so on that statement alone, it far exceeds most of Tony's suits. Most. I say most. In his normal suits, Tony really struggles to take on Asgardians, and he's been pummeled by Thor way too many times to count. That being said, the Destroyer has pummeled the Helheim out of Thor so many times. The Destroyer has been able to tank hits from Odin himself, and he made the thing. Number 2, the Justice Buster. Another Batman suit. Sorry. In the Endgame story, the Joker has twisted the other members of the Justice League with his Joker toxin, meaning we get to see Batman take them all on. While we know Bruce has contingencies for each member of the League, Batman instead in this story dons an armor that has the capability to subdue every single main member of the Justice League, the Justice Buster armor. Using this suit, or I guess it's better to call it a mechanized armor, Batman puts Wonder Woman in a dream state, maps out the Flash's movements, and causes him to slip and crash into a building, knocking him out. He fires a foam made up of magnesium carbonate at Aquaman that envelops him and drains him of the moisture in his body the more he struggles, and then Superman shows up. The Justice Buster has plasma shields to deflect eye beams, thrusters and thermals to deter frost breath, but this is a Superman that isn't pulling his punches. When Superman gets through this armor, it doesn't actually matter though. Batman spits a polymer laced with green kryptonite dust into Superman's eyes, rendering him completely powerless. Batman. And finally, in at number 1, it's Apocalypse's celestial armor. Being one of the first mutants on the planet Earth with the ability to manipulate his own molecular structure, Sabanier, or Apocalypse, is an extremely powerful villain in Marvel Comics. But that was before his run-ins with Celestials. His original ability to control his molecular structure was augmented by Celestial technology, but then further enhanced through the celestial armor he wears to make him the evolutionary caretaker. This armor comes with a title, and that's pretty cool. Other than titles and really cool celestial systems, the armor gives him some other abilities he wouldn't normally possess, like teleportation, the ability to mentally link with and control almost any kind of tech and machinery, celestial energy shields and blasts, and most importantly, the armor pushes his own abilities even further, allowing him to grant himself almost any superpower he wants. It's nuts. A suit created by Celestials is just going to rival almost anything that Tony Stark can come up with. Almost anything.